Corporation meeting to order. It is Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, and 3:59. There's another. Citizens who desire to address the city council board and or commission with regard to matters on the agenda will be read and or received at this time.
No, ma'am.
Close that one. Next item, minutes, consideration of an action on the minutes of March 7th, 2023 of the joint Sugarland 4B Corporation and Sugarland Development Corporation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So a motion by Director Lane and second by Director Sidney. Billy?
Aye.
Jennifer?
Aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries unanimously. Next item, workshop review of and discussion on the update of projects for the commercial redevelopment and residential reinvestment all-in. Devin Rodriguez. Present.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, I don't know what I have. I think back, I don't think it was even, maybe it was maybe a few more months than that. We came to this board and some of you members were not yet here and gave a kind of market update about kind of the state of Sugarland's markets, but we also kind of touched on a little bit about redevelopment and kind of where we are in our current like state of the life cycle of our city. And so since that time, we've been doing a lot more work on our redevelopment initiative, and we thought it was probably a good time to come back to this board and kind of share where we're at, what are the things that have been accomplished. Some of these things the 4B board isn't necessarily funding, but you know, who knows where these projects will evolve into the future and where maybe some of those requests might be coming forward. And so we just want to take this opportunity to keep you updated and involved in sort of the city's #1 priority, which is redevelopment. So back in February 2022, the city council came together and we had several all-in initiatives. And redevelopment was identified as the city council's top priority. And what does that kind of mean for our city? And what do we mean when we say redevelopment? I think there's still actually, as we're working on this project, lots of different terminology that's coming up that we have different variants of definition. But in this instance, we're talking about, this is the life cycle of our city. This is not specific to Sugarland. It's every city. You have this beginning small town, rapid growth, and kind of hit that peak. And then you have these two choices to make. You're running out of land. You have limited options for growth. And so how are you going to continue to grow the city in a way that provides revenues to continue to provide those levels of services and continue to have a thriving economy along with it, with jobs and housing and retail and everything that goes together. So we are really at that peak and at that decision point. I think people's opinions differ on where exactly we are, or are we headed down the curve? But again, this is what every city goes through in terms of as you develop and have that rapid growth, and then that starts to kind of slow. So I've talked about this before of the economic development impact cycle, and it's just important to bring up again because this is how economics and city growth works, and it all starts with jobs. And we always talk about the example of we are a company town, and it started with Imperial Sugar and Sugarland, and Imperial Sugar brought jobs. People came to Sugarland for those jobs. Housing was built for those workers so that they could live here. And as that economy from Imperial Sugar grew from those jobs, and people had their salaries to be spending their money on other things and for their households, other ancillary businesses sprung up, right? Other services, other products to meet the needs of that growing population. And so this is the cycle. It all starts with jobs. It creates that demand for housing. People move into those housing. Retail follows rooftops. It has that demand for the retail and the dining. And then that all of that together generates those revenues that provide the city services. So why redevelopment? Why are we talking about this now? This is the picture, the blue areas. That's the areas that we have that are not yet developed in this city. There are vacant, like greenfield parcels. So in the city, we have about 4% of our land is undeveloped. That's not a lot. We don't have options to grow our boundaries or go elsewhere. There's other jurisdictions or ETJs that we butt up against. And so there's not that opportunity for future growth in terms of farther out. So we have to look to see to do what does growth mean to us now? How can we reimagine that? What can we do with the best that we can do with the land that we have remaining? And how do we continue to attract and retain that tax base, stay relevant and competitive? We want this to continue to be a place where people want to gather and live and preserve that quality of life and the community image and reputation of Sugar Land. So it's sort of a lot of the why that went into city council of saying this is our number one priority. For redevelopment, we have a focus on the commercial as well as the residential. These bullets are what came out of the city council retreat of what the desired outcomes are in a first year, 2-year time frame of progress. I'm only going to focus on a few of these as part of this presentation, but these are all of the desired outcomes and expectations that city council set out for our redevelopment initiative. And so I won't read them all, but first one is mixed use zoning. Right now, unlike areas of Houston, Sugar Land has zoning. We have several, probably more than 10 zoning districts, different levels of residential, commercial, and then as well as industrial, I think 1 or 2 industrial zoning districts. And this zoning is laid out across the city. You can think of it as putting color on a map, right? All these different zoning districts have different colors and it's placed on the map. Currently our zoning districts are either strictly residential, only residential shall be built in this area, commercial, only commercial shall be built in this area, and industrial, only industrial. And so though there isn't a mix of land uses that allows that residential and that commercial to live together in the same area, you can't have a small neighborhood with a coffee shop at the corner or something like that, because that's not how the zoning district allows those 2 different types of uses to live together. So part of what came out of the 2018 land use plan was that in order to reimagine our growth and continue to grow this city, there would be 5 areas as well as several smaller 5 areas called regional activity centers, and then several smaller areas called neighborhood activity centers that could be areas where mixed use, meaning residential and commercial, could live together and have that what's the word I'm looking for? Symbiotic is what's coming in my name, but that's not the word I was looking for. But basically that these 2 uses aren't going to be in conflict with each other, right? They're going to coexist in a manner that is helpful to the community. Maybe that walkability, maybe you have an insurance business and you have your home nearby and you have your office down the street, or maybe you could have your office as part of a part in your home as well. So it's just those different allowed uses being able to be living together.
Devin,
Yes.
how does, and maybe because it's not single dwelling, but at city center, there's housing and commercial.
Mhm.
How is that managed with the zoning districts then?
So a lot of this is so there was a workshop, and there's going to be a second workshop because we went and got feedback from city council and planning and zoning. And so that is a point of being discussed between what's the level of density that we're comfortable with in these regional activity centers. A lot of it is focused on the form, meaning the layout of the space. So how wide do the sidewalks have to be? How is there shade or landscaping or buffering between it? I don't know exactly what the planning I can't remember what the planning terminology is. There is, I think it's called bulk plane.
But when did the city council approve those 2 new?
They haven't. This is
Okay.
in the works now.
Right, but right now, today, there are people that live in.
You mean like in town square?
Yes.
Yeah.
How will they do that if the zoning hasn't been approved yet?
So in town square right now, we have a PD, a planned development. So it's a customized negotiated zoning. So when town square was built,
Mhm.
they went through a process of negotiating back and forth and basically customizing a zoning zoning district, a zoning area specifically for town square.
Okay,
And so that's how now, after the land use plan, there was a study done of how do we continue to encourage these mixed use areas? And is PDs or planned development the best way of going about it? And what came out of that study was that we should pursue creating these mixed use zoning districts, because right now we have multiple PDs, like 30, 40, I don't think quite 50, but they're all negotiated. They're all different, right? So you don't have that consistency across the
Mhm.
city. And if we were to create a zoning district, it sets those standards
Yeah.
of this is what we expect. It also provides upfront to the development community and property owners that own land. This is what you can do with your land. This is what you can develop. This is what our expectations are for development in this area. So these
got it.
mixed use zoning districts are in the works right now. They're in draft form. There was a workshop. There's going to be another workshop. And so this is currently in the works, but not been approved.
Yeah, you answered by saying
Mhm.
plan development.
Mhm.
That helps. Thank you.
And then another major the largest, most important of this redevelopment initiative has been the Imperial redevelopment project. So the city has partnered with Puma Development to our number one priority of this project is to preserve and redevelop the Char House, the city's most iconic building. And Puma is looking to do a mixed use development that would include this mix of uses, be a walkable district, a vibrant place. I think it's we're excited about the opportunity to breathe new life into this site that has so much community pride and importance to so many people. And how can we take a building that is literally a shell that was around equipment into a brand new use for Sugarland into the future? So we're completed to date on this is that the city has approved a $5 million reimbursement agreement for pre-development and construction costs solely focused on the Char House. So right now, and you'll see it on the next slide, but architectural engineering work, geotechnical work, traffic studies, those types of things. The bulk of that $5 million is dedicated toward actual construction of the Char House. And this is all done on a reimbursement basis is how this agreement is structured. Another piece is that we've approved a lease agreement for future Char House space. The city is a creditworthy tenant. And so as such, it helps Puma in order to secure private financing for the remainder of the Char House project. A land use plan amendment was approved as well as a general development plan. The general development, going back to that PD thing, the general development plan is the first step of a two-step zoning process. So the general development plan, which is this picture here on the right, is the visual showing kind of a general layout of street networks, a general layout of where land uses would be. And then a second step will be a final development plan. We anticipate that there will be more than one final development plan. That would be back to the point about the mixed use. That would be the PD that I mentioned, that is that customized negotiated zoning laid out for these areas. And then I already mentioned that we're already doing pre-development related specifically to the Char House.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How many final development plans can you have?
Like for this project specifically, or just in general?
Well, you said that could be one of several final development
Mhm,
plans.
mhm.
I would think final means final. I don't know.
So my point of saying that there's going to be multiple is because this project is going to be phased. And there's a certain level of detail that is needed in order to submit for a final development plan, like architectural rendering drawings of specific buildings. And so they will have like a phase one that's going to be focused on the historic buildings. But by the time they get up to this area, this is probably going to be a separate final development plan.
Okay.
The first final development plan that's going to come through is going to be just on phase one. And the phase one is going to be in this
Got it.
area.
Okay.
There'll probably be, there might be a separate one here, might be a separate one here. I don't know exactly how it's going to be phased out, but that's why there will be multiple.
Thank you.
For an example too, like Town Square we had a final development plan, but it's had like 5 amendments, if not 10. So like, just because it's approved and final, the market changes, things change. And we have to come back to council, go back through the planning and zoning commission process, go to council. And that's like the biggest part about this mixed use zoning district and why it's gonna help alleviate the time. Like, there's a significant amount of time that is spent going through the PD and then amendments and all of that stuff as things change.
You have an
So-
example of when we did an amendment on a final recently? Just curious.
I can't remember, I would have to ask planning on a recent one, but I know that Town Square has had several amendments to its PD. I mean, I think,
It's okay.
I don't have.
I was
one
just
off the top
curious.
of my head.
Thank
but
you.
also didn't last night at City Council, Riverstone have some
That's what
amendments to
I
the
wanted
PD,
to
its
say
PD
that.
as well?
Right.
Say, but I wanted to
That was an
Yeah.
amendment to that,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
So just specific to the Char House, like I said, pre-development work has been underway. And these are some renderings that show some of that pre-development work. An important financing component of, restoring and redeveloping the Char House is not a net positive in terms of this development. It's just the most important cementing piece of that historic nature for the overall development. And so the historic tax credits is going to be a very crucial funding source for it. So you'll see in this rendering over here, this addition. The Char House, as I said, is a shell of a building that was built around equipment. It didn't have stairwell, it didn't have bathrooms, and it certainly doesn't meet any of our building codes today. So how do you take a building like that and maximize the floor space in order to have it be a usable building, but still have the number of stairwells you need, the number of bathrooms you need, the plumbing that you need? And so that addition is what is meant to meet those current building codes to still redevelop the Char House. And I don't think that image shows it as well as some other images, but it has a picture of the sugar making process on it, is what's visualized as sort of showing that historic nature of the Char House. And then these other images is of a rooftop area that is envisioned for the Char House, as well as the interior, whether it be office space or something else, just to give you a feel of some of the things that are being worked on. Next steps will be a final development plan. I said number 1. So we're expecting it to be a phased project. We will need to address new and amended development agreements. So new meaning we will need a development agreement with Puma that controls things related to this overall 40-acre area. But there is also a redevelopment agreement for the entire Imperial development area that is going to need to be amended in order to support this project moving forward. So the current third amendment of that development agreement is specific to the old Imperial Market project, like down to the exact square footages, parking, garages, and number of stalls and those types of things. So that will need to be amended in order to reflect and support this project moving forward. And the goal is to complete the Char House by 2025, which is its 100th anniversary.
So
Next.
when,
Yes.
sorry, question. So when do all those amendments have to be done to be able to meet your goal?
Mhm. We're working on them right now. And
Okay.
so it'll probably come in similar time frame of the first phase of the final development plan. Next steps, you can go to the website. On the website is this yellow box on the right. If you can click on it for more information, we are regularly updating it, updating FAQs, updating renderings or information as we get them. We've kind of put a timeline on there of these are the different steps to try to educate the community about what are all the different stops along the way in order to actually put a shovel in the ground. So if you want information, that's the best place to go. And then switching gears to one of our other top priorities, which is the residential reinvestment. We in February launched the Great Homes program. And it had two components to it. One was providing design services through two different vendors to help homeowners reimagine their exterior facade. And then a second part was an actual exterior rebate. And there was a 10% and a 25%, depending on the age of your home and what the assessed value of your home was. And so I have some great, hopefully you can see some of these. We can also send out this presentation so you can see it closer, but we have some before and afters here. Up here in the top, the pink is some of the before and afters for the exterior improvements that were made. This one up here on the right, this is in Mayfield. And I think it's a great example of a major change being made to a home. They didn't have a driveway before, and putting a driveway into that home. Then this next part is really an update to the facade, windows, siding, and new paint that really changed the look of the home.
Kevin? I have
Yes.
Another question. The only reason I know this is, my husband being the HOA.
Mhm.
So in updating, for example, our bylaws do not allow people to paint their brick.
Mhm. Some HOAs do. And also with our design vendors, you were able to specifically provide your HOA like design guidelines and restrictions, and they did your design based off of those. So like you'll see, it's really small here in the corner, but here's a before and after for one design. They did not paint the brick. But it is still a major change that can be done to the home. So some HOAs in the city do allow painted brick, some do not, but even if you didn't, there's still major changes.
Yes.
There was one home that I'm sure that they did some other things, but one was just changing their garage door. And it's amazing just what changing the garage door does to the look of your home. I mean, think about it, the way it sits, it can be very prominent, right?
Mhm.
And it was a major change to upgrading kind of the look of the front of their home.
We just need a cute couple for home improvement that lives in Sugarland.
You got it. You know somebody? So progress to date, we've distributed 72 design vouchers. 146 exterior home projects are either ongoing or have been paid out. We, due to our, there's the exterior rebate that we give, but there's the total cost that the homeowners have been investing in their home. And with this program, we've incentivized over $2.3 million of exterior improvements in homes. And of that 433,000, almost 434,000 is what we've either committed to date or have expended. Some of that, obviously, we haven't sent out the checks, but we've committed it. They have approved projects and they're working through and completing those and submitting that paperwork in order to get those reimbursements back. So if you know anybody, the program is still open, but we are getting close to the end of our funds. We have 500,000 that is available. So we're getting very close to having to close out the program for this year. We do have design vouchers available. If you know anybody or is interested, please tell them to go to sugarlandecodev.com/greathomes, where we have all the information there, as well as how they can submit their application. This program is available to all residents in Sugarland. So you don't have to have a certain threshold in terms of like the value of your home. That does determine what is the percentage rebate that you would receive. But early on when we were crafting this program, we felt it was important to have it something available to everybody in the city. And so that's how it's been structured. And then finally, communication and engagement with our community is super critical to all of this. I say what made Sugarland successful the last 20 years isn't what's going to make us successful the next 20 years. And so that toolbox that we had before, we're going to need a new toolbox. And so the communication and engagement with our community through various avenues is super important. We're attending an HOA meeting tonight to talk through redevelopment. I had this multi-sprint plan because it's not just redevelopment in general. It could just be the Imperial project, could be the mixed use code, it could be great homes. So we've done a lot of that dialogue and we're continuing to do that. And we continue to see that moving on into the future. Are there any questions?
Great summary.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is appointment, consideration of an action on appointment of 2 directors to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget committee. Director.
All righty, good afternoon. So every year we go through our budget process and we come to the board and ask for nominations for 2 non-city council members to be on a subcommittee that will help visit with us. It takes less than an hour usually, and kind of go through our first draft of our income statement and what we're proposing for the next year. And then you'll help us kind of present to the board whenever we come back to give the workshop and then the final approval of our budget as we go through the budget cycle. So we'll meet between now and sometime in July, middle of July, before our next meeting. Take less than an hour, and then from there we will have our workshop in July and then approval in August by the board, and then city council approval in September, because our fiscal year starts October 1. And then last year on our budget committee was Director Atkinson and Director Sewell. So with that, I will open it up for your recommendations.
I nominate Steve. Director Steve.
Second.
Amy Sewell nominate. Jennifer second. Billy.
Aye, agree.
Aye.
Bert.
Sure. Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
And give
I
us a
nominate
second.
Kurt.
Yeah, I second. So Stuart nominated Kurt. Amy Sewell second.
Aye.
Billy.
Aye.
Kurt. Aye. Stuart. Unanimous. So you have your 2 people now. And
Fantastic.
the next one is director's report.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't know, hopefully y'all are following us on all of our social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. But last year, this past few weeks, DCI did deliver a success story on Rebees. So Rebees came and presented to both boards and talked about their investment in the town square and like what their future plans are and the past investment. And so they did a great story about that. So hopefully you got to see it. If you didn't, we can certainly send it to you. So let us know. And then they've also got a media visit. So what part of our contract is they're supposed to bring 2 to 3 different journalists to our community to help us continue to spread the word about Sugar Land and get our story out there. So on July 6th through 8th, we've got a media visit from Matador Network. So reporter Jill Robbins will be coming and spending a few days with us, and we'll be going and seeing some of our destinations, like obviously Space Cowboys. It's always a big one that people like to go to. So I'm sure Melissa and her team have got a great agenda lined up for her. And then as you all, I know council has seen it, and I believe we sent it out on social media as well and to y'all. But over the last few weeks, again, Melissa, the marketing team, has worked with Public Works, Parks and Rec, Airport, and Human Resources, now Culture and People and Culture Department. And we have been branding vehicles with Space Cowboys. So hopefully keep an eye out for some of the City of Sugar Land vehicles out there. We've got either the whole vehicle is wrapped or just the tailgate. But we also have our Visit Sugar Land brand slapped on there to help continue to educate people about Visit Sugar Land, what we do, what are the great things to do in our community, and encourage people to follow us. And then there's also a cool like QR code that you can scan. It'll take you straight to our website as well. So, and then if you haven't seen, driving down Highway 90, our Public Works building has been wrapped as well. It's got a beautiful wrap that talks about water conservation efforts, but also again, has our Visit Sugar Land logo and the Space Cowboys. So continuing to drive traffic and people to our websites and to our venues, and hopefully help them spend dollars here in our community and keep our economy thriving. So with that, that's all I've got.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
To adjourn? Okay, we're gonna approve.
Yep.
It's unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Masters are still winning 10-8.
Oh, thank God.